All right, good morning for the final morning of our conference. I am Martin McClure, and I work on the Gemstone product line for GemTalk Systems. This talk is not, however, Gemstone specific. It should apply equally to all small talks. So, undo the world. If you're anything like me, you wish that sometimes the world had an undo button. If you do something stupid, it's like, oh, undo. I have the keys to the rental car. They are not down the elevator shaft. Okay. Unfortunately, I'm not going to tell you how to get that. But in our small talk tools, it would be nice to be able to undo possibly more than we can. Even though undo was originated at, Xerox PARC was one of the very first places to put undo into their stuff, and there was an undo in Smalltalk 80. We still don't necessarily have the ability to undo everything that we would like to be able to undo. So I'm going to start right off with the dreaded live demo. If I can get my mouse to work, which I can't. Okay, there we go. And you do not need to log into that network. All right, so here we have a very simple method. Adds 2 and 3. And if I go over here and I print that, I get 5, as I would expect. So now I want to modify this method a little bit. It's like, oh, this is not a place where pi can be approximated to 3 legally. So we'll put that in there. Now I've just typed it in. I haven't saved this. So so if I run it, it still says 5. Okay, that's what we expect. Now I'm going to cancel this edit. And the accept and cancel are way at the bottom of this menu, which is off the bottom of the screen at this resolution. So I'm going to do it with a keyboard shortcut of Control-L to cancel this edit. Okay, so now we're back. The little triangle that said we had unsaved changes is gone. I'm going to run it again. It's still 5. Okay, very good. But now I want to undo that because, maybe I wanted to save those changes that I just typed. Are they gone forever? Well, let's undo. Let's see what happens. Undo. And it comes back. The triangle comes back. The decimal point stuff comes back. It's there. This is great. Why am I so excited about this? Largely because other Smalltalks can't do this. Some other ones. VisualWorks has never been able to do this. And if you spent a long time typing a method and accidentally canceled it, there was your work, gone, down the elevator shaft. And so about 20 years ago, VisualWorks, instead of having accept and cancel the top 2 items on their menu, they put accept at the very top of the menu and cancel at the very bottom of the menu so that it would be harder to accidentally do the wrong thing. And my comment to that was, no, just make them both undoable, and then you don't care. But they didn't listen. So I think it's very neat that Pharaoh is now doing this because Squeak does. So let's now see if the other part of it works in Pharaoh. Can I undo a method save? So I'm going to save this method. Once again, you can't see the menu item, so I'm going to use Control-S, and I save it, and the triangle goes away. And if I execute it, I get 5.1459, as we might expect. So now I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to try to undo, and let's see what it does, or undoes. Well, it did something. The triangle showed up. The text is not what I would expect. Well, I would expect the text to have stayed unmodified, that it would only undo the save. And then I go over here and I say, oh, let's run this. It's like, it didn't change the behavior of the system. The modified method is still in there. It did not undo my save. This is an epic fail. Okay. So, sorry to pick on Pharaoh, but Pharaoh is both better and worse than I want. So, okay. So let's go back here. So we have a question, right? Well, what should be undoable? All right. Anybody have an answer to that? Ah, you anticipated me. Everything. Okay. I didn't make it hard. Okay. That was intentional to not make it difficult. Everything should be undoable. Okay. Now, why? Why should everything be undoable? Anybody want to? Okay. This one's a slightly more difficult, but it's still a one-word answer. Yes. Yes, that is very good. But that's why you want undo it all. But why everything? Consistency. Right? If everything is undoable, then the user knows that they can deal with something and undo it, and that's one kind of consistency. There's also a second kind of consistency that's a bit more technical. So if we have this linear model of multiple undo, which is the most common kind, easiest to deal with, easiest to understand for the user, not the most flexible thing in the world, but where you go from one point, you do something, you do something, you do something, you do something, and then you can undo, redo, undo, whatever, until you actually do something new. And if it's the point where you go, if you undo back to here and then you do something, then these states are no longer available to you, that kind of model. But in this kind of a model, if you make some things undoable and other things not undoable, you can run into logical inconsistencies. Like say that you had, I believe in VisualWorks, refactorings are mostly undoable, but other things aren't. So let's say I did a rename class to rename from A to B, and then and that is going to be undoable. And then I create a new class that's called class A. And that's not undoable. So now if I undo, it's going to try to rename class B back to class A, but there's already a class A. So you end up with these semi-nightmare sort of situations if you're not consistent. So we said that everything ought to be undoable, and we've kind of shown that for consistency we want it that way. So then there's the question of, well, how do we want undo to behave? Yes, that too. I mean, this may be kind of obvious, right? Usually it's just like, well, put things back the way they were before, restore the state that I had before. And yes, that's pretty good. When you have the system's state is only from the actions of the user, this is pretty simple. If there are other outside factors that affect the state of the system, then you have to make a little better definition. And it may vary based on your circumstances, but I'm going to propose sort of the default basic definition, which is if you undo an action, you make it like that action never happened. Okay. And how should redo behave? Very similarly, should make it like it never happened. Like what never happened? Like the undo never happened. Okay, does these sound like reasonable definitions? Okay, they have some ramifications. But so the second dangerous live demo. I didn't notice. Okay. All right, so here we have a very simple application. It's a stopwatch. You know, I can run it. I can pause it. I can reset it to 0 while it's running or while it's stopped. Okay. So pretty simple, but all of those actions are undoable. I'm opening a new one just to clear my undo buffer, right? So, so here in the upper point, I have a hamburger menu, and that says undo redo. It's a bit blurry because it's in the corner of the screen. Maybe move this over a little bit. And so we have, and now it knows that the undo and redo stacks are empty, so it says, well, I can't. There's nothing for me to do here. But let's run it a little bit, and now it will say, do you want me to undo the run? Right, and it tells me what I'm going to undo. That was one of the things I really wish that other people would do as well, is tell you what the thing is you're about to undo or redo. Okay, so let's undo that run, and it goes back to 0. This is what we would expect. So now I'm going to do something a little more complicated. I'm going to let it run for about, 5 seconds, and then I'm going to pause it at 5.6. And now, if I undo the pause, what is going to happen? Yes. From what point? Okay. As if it never happened. Yeah. And this is where those external factors come in. In this case, time is progressing. So if I say undo the pause, it continues from 37 seconds. Okay. Right. As I say, when you have external factors, you may want to define things a little different. But in this case, I took the as if it never happened quite literally. And it is consistent with that. Now, if I redo the pause, it failed. I got a glitch. Yeah. There we go. And it goes back to 5.6 seconds. Yeah, there's actually somewhere in here I've got a race condition, and it actually the internal state updated, but the display didn't. I just threw this thing together. Very simple, but it's so anyway, you get the idea, right? So let's go back to the. Okay, so how do you implement undo? It's actually fairly easy to implement that linear model of undo. And it all centers around an action object. So we have an abstract class action. It knows it has some target object that is the object that it operates on, and you can set that target. So this is what the abstract class, the important part of the abstract class looks like. And then if you subclass that with some action like stopwatch run action or stopwatch pause action are subclasses that I actually have in what I just showed. And then you implement these methods to do what you need to do. There's the name, that's what gets displayed in the menu. And then there's perform the action. And when you send perform action, it's going to go to its target, query the target for its whatever state it needs to remember about the target so that it maybe can restore it later. And then it's going to ask the target to actually perform the action. And then when you say undo action or redo action, it's going to interact with the target in order to actually do that and save whatever state it needs to in order to do that. Discard action, the default for that is to do nothing. But if you happen to have some external state that is being held onto that's outside of the actual action object and its object graph, then at the point where your undo got pushed off of the end of the undo stack and is no longer going to be undoable, you can have it release that stuff with discard action. And also there is a central undo manager for every scope of undo, because undos have scopes. Like, you don't want, a truly global scope for an undo would be disastrous, because you would do an undo and you would undo something 5,000 miles away, just did. Even in your own machine, you want scopes usually, like one browser window. If you go to one browser window and you do something here, and then you do an undo here, you may want to undo just what's in that browser window and not what's over here. You can get inconsistencies if they're both working off of the same code base, but you can usually deal with that. So every scope has an instance of undo manager. It has an undo stack and a redo stack, which are of limited depth. Things automatically get pushed off the end, and they get sent discard action if you do that. And you start things off by saying, hey, undo manager, please perform this action. And it will, and give it an action, and it will do that, and then it will remember that action on its undo stack, so that when you say undo, it will pop that off the undo stack, send it the undo action message, and then push it onto the redo stack, and so on. So that works pretty easily. It's not that much code. It's very easy to put in if you design your things to use this from the beginning, but I think it's probably pretty easy to put in after the fact as well. So that's most of what I have, but there's one takeaway that I want to leave you with, and that is that if you ever see a dialogue that starts, do you really want to? I want you to think this is a tragic lost opportunity for an undo. Because you shouldn't have to be prompted for, do you really want to do this destructive thing? No, you just need to be able to undo the destructive thing.